Red light, red light. I'm a loud preacher, lady. It's fine. Red is on. There's no green. That's all right. You all can hear me. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Erin Totten Jones, and I serve as the pastor in Escanaba, First Central and Bark River. I'm a new pastor to the Michigan Conference, and I'm also new to this task force. It is my job today to be the host, to be the MC. We're gonna see how this goes. So I got voluntold because I missed our meeting for missing a dentist appointment. Really. But I want to begin us in prayer as we begin our session today. Will you join us in prayer? Oh, gracious and holy and loving God, as we gather in this sacred conversation, God, may we listen to your Spirit. Lord, may you discern your will and your way for us and the ability to move forward. Lord, we know how much camping has changed hearts and lives. Lord, we know how much this ministry has impacted so many people. Oh God, be here with us today. Send your Spirit, your breath, your wisdom, your strength, your encouragement, and your love. God, for all you have given us, Lord, lead us and guide us. This we pray. Amen. So today we are here just to listen, but the task force would like to do just a little bit before we open it up to everybody else. And I believe Vicky's going to talk about the financials, and we're going to do some introductions.
I am Christy Hintz. I am the district superintendent of the Northern Skies District, and I'm really glad to be with you today, those who braved the weather and came in person, and those who are with us online.
Use the microphone. Otherwise, the 23 devices that might be shared by other people will not be able to hear you. So, has anybody here ever attended an annual conference down in Traverse City? A handful, okay? It's the exact same deal. If you don't speak into the microphone, half the people who are trying to participate right now won't hear you. So I will help you with that as best as I can. And also, to those who are online right now, you're welcome to use the chat group. I will monitor that, and I will bring any of your questions and comments to the meeting room as well. So we'll try to do this kind of hybrid thing here. So welcome, especially those on YouTube.
And by the way, if you should forget to use the microphone, we'll gently remind you, because even at annual conference where they have 6, 7 microphones set up, they still have to remind people to use the microphone. So don't feel bad, all right? So I wanted to, is there anyone who did not pick up a copy of the flows that we had?
Just a second. Dominic, I gotta ask you real quick, can you double check that all the audio is working?
No, it's not.
Oh. Yeah, there's no audio online right now. Okay.
It's okay.
Aaron's was working for a moment.
Okay.
And then we lost.
This mic? Yeah.
Yeah. For some reason,
Which
some
one?
of the mics are not getting-
Okay.
Oh, okay. Great.
How about now?
Yeah, that one.
This one?
Good.
We're gonna use this one.
Okay, so we're only gonna use that one. Someone's gonna pass this one. Okay, great.
No worries. Thank you all for your patience. You know, this is good. Thanks for the folks online letting us know they couldn't hear us. So, again, did everybody get a copy of these? I just wanted to go over it just a little bit to show you some of the numbers. Oh, nobody online heard us. Okay. Did they hear Christy? Did they hear Christy and Aaron? Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Reverend Christy Hintz. I am the district superintendent for the Northern Skies District, and thanks to our online folks for letting us know that you were not hearing us properly. Glad you're with us today.
Okay, and now, so this is the only microphone that we will be using, and it should be live with everything. My name is Pastor Eric. I'm at Houghton Grace. I'm monitoring the chat feed, so if you're online, please leave a comment or a question there. I will bring it to the room, and anyone who's in the room, when it's your turn to speak, we'll hand you this microphone as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I'm Pastor Vicki Pruitt. I'm with Crystal Falls and Amasa, and I became a member of the board of directors for Camp Michigamme at the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, and became the chair. I said president before. Sorry, we didn't have a president, but I stepped in as chair in 2024 that I became chair of the board of directors. So for those of you, and I know we are going to try to get some of this information for the live chat, but I just wanted to be the one to go over to show you some of the numbers of what the board was looking at and what we were trying to do. Starting with the camper registration, the blue is the youth campers, the orangey color is the adult campers. In 2019, we had 217 youth and 82 adults. In 2021, because we had a pandemic in there, in 2021 we had 221 youth campers and 49 adults. It went down in 2022 to 170 youth and 38 adults. For 23 through 25, the adults stayed steady at 37, but there was a decline in the youth camping. 2023, we were at 133. It dropped down to 70, and then down to 74 in 2025. One of the things that was noted, and that's at the very bottom, we went from closer to $80,000, $90,000 of camper payments before COVID to less than $30,000 in the past 2 years from camper registration. In the income and the expenditures, again, the income is the blue line on this chart. The expenditures is the yellowy orangey color. And you can see that in we're able to go back to 2016 on that. 2016, we were even out at 206,000. 2017, we brought in 203,000, but had to expend 222,000. In 2018, we were blessed with $80,000 in donations for the Agape Wigwam, so we brought in 306,000, but the expenditures were 209,000. That was a good year. But then in 2019, just before the pandemic hit, the income dropped to 169,000, and the expenditures were 339. And you can see that it continues to change. In 2020, that was sort of a wash year for everybody, but in 21, it was 191 coming in, 167 going out, and then 116 coming in, 150 going out. In 2023, 121,000 coming in, 130 going out. In 2024, it dropped to $80,000 coming in, 113 going out. And in 2025, 99,000 coming in, 128,000 coming out. Now, one of the things that we recognized that happened is when our district changed, it used to be all of the churches, when we did our ministry shares back then called the apportionments, all of the churches had a specific line item and money was given directly to Camp Michigamme. But as our district grew, as our district changed, we said we can't put that on churches that are below the bridge. It's not fair for them to have to pay for a camp, especially where Lake Louise is right there for them, and it's not fair. So we changed it, and the district told us at that time, I believe it was for 5 years, they would help us out. But as you can see, as those 5 years started ticking away, and they said it would be a gradual decrease of the money coming in from the district. And you can see how it just, we did everything as a board to try to keep our expenses down. But unfortunately, expenditures kept going up, and anybody who's had to pay for electric or food or gas or anything, expenditures kept coming up, but the income just couldn't keep up with it. So at that, I'm gonna be quiet and let you take a look at these, and if you have questions about them, I'll do my best to answer. Okay, and Brady is here too. Yeah, oh, here we go.
I have a question just regarding the camper registration numbers, not that I'm criticizing them. Do the adults, is that paid staff, or is that volunteers that participate only in, like in the cabin parents and that kind of stuff? Or how about Quilters Camp? Is that, those adults included in that count?
It is my understanding that camper registration, those adults are only the adults that were there for a camp. The Quilters Camp, the Scrapbooker Camp, any reading camps, that is the only adult numbers. What is not included in there are the numbers of counselors and things like that. It was my understanding that those were just the campers who went to a camp as a camper, not as somebody who is there as a volunteer or working the grounds. That's my understanding.
Sorry. My name is Brady Boer. I took over as treasurer for the Northern Skies District in 2022. As part of that, I worked with Camp Michigamme as their treasurer as well. So I've served on the Camp Michigamme board since middle of summer 2022.
But that was a good question. Thank you for that. That's, Are there other questions that we have about this particular? Okay.
Okay, question from Jeremy Brady. How much would it cost to still have a summer camp session? Could we work to raise those funds? So, yeah, so that's one of the things that we are looking at right now. There are no funds to run the camp for 2026. That's why the leadership team of the district made the decision that they did. But that's a good question of how much does it actually cost to run a summer at Michigamme? And I know because I did a lot of research. I talked to a gentleman named Neil Haney, who's at Lake Louise down near Gaylord. They have 7 full-time staff. I'm like, I'm just curious, Neil, what did you do? And he showed me all the numbers, and I was like, wow, I had no idea. I go deer hunting with my dad. We go into our little cabin and we set it up and stuff, and that's still pretty expensive for us. To run an actual camp with the staff that you need and the insurance is a lot more. I don't know if someone wants to put a number out there, Vicki, you can?
So our director, Gordon Grigg, he's a good guy, and he thought ahead. People may ask, how much would it cost? So if we were to run just 3 weeks of youth camping, 3 weeks of youth camping would be $75,175. If we were to do adult and youth camping, it would go to $79,375. So close to $80,000, just under $80,000 to open up camp. That doesn't include if a cabin needs repairs, if any, he does have a little bit of, housekeeping things and stuff like that, but this would be bare minimum as far as taking care of anything. If he didn't put in there, like if water heater goes, that's another $300 to $1,000. if there's an electrical problem, and we have had many trees that have fallen down out there on power lines and had to bring people in, that would be another $5,000 to $10,000. Yeah, but that's a good question, and yeah, that's how much it would cost, a little bit less than $80,000 to get the camp up and running, and it's just not feasible for 2026. Am I missing a number there? Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think one of the big things to note as far as camping cost is just the cost of labor. We've had I think the past 2 or 3 years we've spent almost $45,000 over the summer on camp staff to staff the camp, and insurance rates have also gone up. We're paying over $1,000 a month in insurance alone to insure the property and workers' compensation and just all the costs around the camp. But those are two of the big ones, is payroll, insurance, and then also the food costs for the whole camp.
Any other questions that we have? Okay. I don't know. Okay. Yes.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Amy Manning. I was a long-term camper at Michigamme my entire elementary, junior high, and senior high years. Now my older two daughters have been campers every year. So first, thank you so much for having this session. Number one, as I look at these numbers, I will say that the gap isn't as huge as I expected it to be when I heard the news that Camp Michigamme was shutting down. So hopefully that indicates that there is hope for Camp Michigamme. Second, my career is in rentals, both short-term and long-term, and I do serve on a municipal board in the Marquette area. So I will not say I'm an expert in any of this, but I do have some experience in many of these areas. And so my question, when we look at these different activities, is that usually the approach is two-pronged, one to reduce expenses and one to increase revenue. How actively or aggressively have you sought additional revenue streams for Camp Michigamme?
So I know that we have, so first off, I want to give a huge thank you. There are the quilting week. Those ladies come in, and they would come in and they would make quilts, and then they would sell them. They have sold other accessory items and done some other fundraising for us. So I know that we have had that additional income coming in. We have tried other fundraising things. We have sent out information to the churches saying, this is where we're sitting, and the response just wasn't there. We did try to begin an endowment because I personally know how an endowment can help an organization move on. We tried to start an endowment. Again, the response wasn't there. Was it that it got sent out and people didn't read it? Was it that it got out and people said, I don't know why. But we did try that. I'm going to be honest. I don't know how much more aggressively we could have done it as a group of volunteers. Anybody who does fundraising knows that the best fundraising is done by hiring somebody to do it, but we didn't have the money to hire anybody. So, we couldn't really hire somebody to do the work that really can be done in fundraising. But I know that we had gone through, Gordon had applied for many grants. We were blessed with a lot of grants that he applied for and we got. We did everything we could as a board to cut costs. We really hesitated, but we finally had to up the camper registration price. We were the last camp in the area. We had to bump it up to $425 that last year. We were undercutting everybody even at $425, knowing that, boy, to make the camper, registration amount, we'd have to charge much more, but at the same time knowing that if we did that, people would say that's too much. So we did try.
I want to thank Vicki. So again, if you missed the beginning of the session, Vicki was the chair of the Michigamme Board of Trustees. Again, it's a district-owned camp. It is run and operated by the district. The board of trustees are the ones kind of overseeing the camp, so she did a lot of work for that during the time. We don't want to stay in this information part for too long. Just want to point that out. We really want to hear about our dreams and our hopes and ideas from you. So as tempting as it is to keep going down this, how much would it cost? What could we do? I want to reiterate, the board of trustees from Michigamme has dissolved. The district leadership team has made the decision based on the financial information that we had not to run camp this year. And we are now sitting on 80 acres of lakefront property and wanting to ask you, what could we do? What could we do with it? And so we can keep going down the financial route a little bit because we do want people to understand why we made the decision that we did. But again, we really want this to be a listening session and for us to do less talking and more listening. So I just want to put that out there to remind you.
Robert Dobson. I'm a retired Methodist pastor from 1966. And my concern is I don't see, first I'd like to know how the Lutheran Church is doing across the bay from us, how they're camping. Are they hurting the same way? Are they still going? Their church camp. The other thing is I'm concerned is if we just try to keep pushing this when there isn't much hope of the future, I'm sure the township is also looking at the property, and we're going to start getting tax bills if we're not using it, if we're not producing it as a camp and it's not being listed. And we ought to check to see where district camps, so the whole bill for camping would be for churches in the Upper Peninsula. Thank you.
Oh, I can do that. Now we're going to turn to the point of how do we have 80 acres of lakefront property, which is absolutely beautiful. I moved up here to the UP 7 months ago. I've been to Michigamme once in the fall, and it was absolutely gorgeous, my friends. Like, I was blessed for a little retreat with my husband and my dogs. But to say, how do we move forward? So we want to listen to your hopes and your dreams of what do we do with this property that we've so loved and beloved for so long, that has made disciples of Jesus Christ, that has transformed lives through the Holy Spirit. So what do you got?
So my name is Eric Lynch. I know some of you here, and I know some of you online. So just a little bit of an introduction. So I've been going to Camp Michigamme since truly before I can remember, because my parents had been involved counseling and deaning music camp. I went as, an elementary mini camp or a music camp or junior high, senior high. I counseled at camp. I was a dean of 2 different camps. And until very recently, I was on the board. So I have a lot of experience there. Hey everybody online. So when we look at these numbers, like, yes, it looks bad, but I also know that this is not a new problem. We could go back even further than this, 10, 15, 20 years, and we would see, maybe some years not as staggering of a difference, but it's been an ongoing issue. In my opinion, from where I'm standing, from my perspective, 2019 was kind of the beginning of maybe not the beginning of the end, to try and be hopeful, but the beginning of getting us to where we are now. That was when a decision was made, kind of rushed through a board decision. I was not on the board at that point in time, but to move away from an all-volunteer model to a model that relied fully on paid staff. Given the financial realities of camp at the time and since then, that has been, I believe, unsustainable. Getting rid of volunteers and increasing the cost of what it takes to run a week of camp or a summer of camp just was probably not an oversight at best, I think. And since then, as we've seen these numbers, enrollment going down, income going down, expenditures going up, at no point was there, I mean, maybe there was a thought, but at no point did anybody think to move back to that model as a way to save money, decrease the number of full-time. Obviously, you need some full-time staff to be there. Anybody who's ever gone to camp knows that. But moving back to volunteers would have decreased the expenditures. That's just the financial and historic reality. I do think that there is a way forward to keep camp going. If we need an example to look to, right across the bay from Camp Michigamme, Presbytery Point went through a similar thing several years ago. They were contracting almost to the point where they were closing. The director and the people who were there running it reached out to volunteers, reached out to alumni. They severely decreased the number of weeks of camp that they had. I think they went, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they went down to maybe just 1 or 2 weeks, and really combined so they could focus their efforts, while at the same time opening it up to other options, to rentals, to local churches using it as a facility. And having been on the board, that was something that we discussed, and it kind of never really went anywhere at this point or at that point. Reaching out to local congregations, using it for church retreats, using it maybe not district-wide because our district is significantly larger than it used to be, but at least a more local, regional place for events. I think that, you know, in the church we hear a lot about stewardship and what we do with the resources and the blessings that God has given us. And I think that honestly, at this point, even exploring the option of selling camp or getting rid of it would be just a waste of a squandering of the resources that God has given us. It is one of the jewels of our district, of our regions. And yeah, maybe we can't support youth camping like we used to. I don't think we can't support it at all moving forward. I think looking at what other places like Presbytery Point have done, decreasing the number of weeks of camp, reaching out to volunteers, getting people to get back involved, kind of mending some of those bridges that have been burned, I think would help us at least just stay afloat for a little bit and keep that going. And I say this as someone who cares greatly about camp. I met my wife there, we got married there, so that's separate from the spiritual formation that I've undergone there. So the number of lives that I've seen touched by Camp Michigamme, I truly, like in a very literal sense, would not be who I am today without it. I wouldn't have my wife. I wouldn't have my own kids that I have today. And so I hope and I pray that these listening sessions are more than just a way to kind of say, you know, we tried our best and we listened, and I hope we really are open to options and to being creative. And this is more than just a way to kind of placate the community and say, you know, the decision's been made and now we'll just kind of appease everybody by having these listening sessions. I don't think that's anybody's intent, but I hope and pray that we can be invested and really find a way to move forward while keeping camp open and touching those lives that it's been doing, the great work that it's been doing for over 100 years.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm trying really hard to stay up with the chat. It's exploding, so this is good. That means a lot of people are interested. Couple of points have been brought up. One is about rentals. People have been married at the camp. It's wonderful. I myself have used it for clergy Sabbath retreats, and made donations to the camp and stuff. That has been a wonderful thing. Part of the issue that the task force is looking at is the fact that we do not have a maintenance person operating that camp. So even if we were to open it up for rentals and say, well, let's just use it, let's use it for the district, you still have to pay someone to open the water lines, close the water lines in the winter, and that was a $4,000 bill this year, something like that, just to winterize it. How would you take care of the maintenance? Who would be there to unlock and open up things for you? As opposed to, say, going to a state park campground somewhere where it's just a picnic table and a fire pit. I just go and do it, right? there are costs inherent to operating that camp, even if it's not used for summer camping. And that's one of the things as a task force we're really trying to dig through and understand. The other one, and I'm pretty sure, Vicki, you have an answer for this. How much did it cost? Sorry, how much deferred maintenance cost would we estimate that we have at the camp right now? And the reason I tap you on the shoulder is because I remember 2 years ago, they were trying to set up an endowment to build 2 new bathhouses, and you got a quote for those bathhouses. Not cabins, not dining halls, just toilets and sinks and showers, right?
Because we would have liked to get new bathhouses, because the bathrooms were one of the sticking points. Every time we would bring the water, we'd reopen the water line, more water lines would break. And so we thought, well, what if we just did showers? You know, we were looking at an area to put in showers, and they would be, you know, open to anybody. You'd have your own little area to go in, and I thought they were joshing me when they quoted us a price of $300,000. I thought that they were joking, that surely they can't be that much. But the same time, out by me, I've got Camp Bottawagama, and that's a county-run camp. And they were quoted $350,000 for their shower houses. So we were kind of on line with that price at between $250,000 and $300,000 to build shower houses. So I don't know if that directly answers that person's question, but we know that we have been blessed. The Agape Wigwam was a beautiful gift from the Emmaus community, and they had volunteers that helped build that. And it still cost a lot of money between both Michigamme and Emmaus to build that building. And one of the concerns that we do have is we know we can't leave the buildings sit, because anybody knows if you leave a building sit, it gets worse. But like I said, if a tree falls on one of those, insurance will only cover so much of it, and you're going to have to, figure out something. I don't have total numbers for what this person is asking, but it's very expensive, more than what we have available to us as a district at this point. But I loved your ideas, Eric, thank you. Yeah, so any other I'm sorry.
That's okay, it can be Vicky's show. Any other thoughts, ideas, dreams, hopes? Make sure you look at the camera too.
My name is Mark Broberg. I'm the lead pastor of North Iron Church in the Marquette-Ishpeming area. And I don't really have probably a right to speak here because I'm not a Methodist in any way. I'm not completely ignorant of microphones, but there's always a little bit of play in that. Again, my name is Mark Broberg. I'm the lead pastor of North Iron Church. We have different churches and campuses throughout the UP. We feel very called to the rural places of the UP and the world, and we love planting churches and seeing people come to know who Jesus is, much like what you're stating here. I think you said over 100 years, Michigamme. Yeah, very powerful. The reason I'm here is I have many Methodists, Lutherans, Catholics in my church who were a part of this camp for many, many years growing up. And I told them I would come and speak on behalf of them. They felt very concerned that Camp Michigamme would not be a gospel-centered place as it has been for over 100 years, and would fall into some other organization. And yet, one of the things that we happen to be faced with at North Iron is our growth. We have over close to 700 kids that meet across our campuses with the ministries that we have weekly, and just leading them, loving them, showing them that they have a plan and purpose for their lives is one of our great privileges. And yet When I see a camp like this, I think about how we would be able to utilize that. I understand we're not Methodists, but I think we believe much the same way. We love much the same way, and would love to utilize the camp. I don't know what that means. I'm just here. I'm listening to all that you're speaking, and yet hopefully maybe God's doing something among us right now. And so I'm just going to throw that out there, because we'd be very, very interested in something. I just don't know what that is. And yet I think the future of Michigamme, like the history of Michigamme, needs to be Jesus-focused. And so I'd be interested in participating in that in some way.
I came from a summer camp in the Illinois Great Rivers Conference, and we did have interdenominational camps that came to use our property and that would rent out our facilities. I don't know what that looks like for Camp Michigamme. I have no idea at this point, but that's a great idea. Thank you. Anybody else? Online.
So one of these questions, and I'm not quite sure what it means, and I might ask my wonderful and talented district superintendent, wouldn't we be able to get some of the disaffiliation money? I don't know what that means. I don't think that has anything to do with the camp, but it's a question, so I'm throwing it out there. Do you want to touch on that real quick?
So there are funds from churches that disaffiliated. Maybe Brady can also speak to this a little bit. Those funds are not designated for camp, and we are in a brainstorming session, so I'm going to write that down. Brady, do you want to add anything to that right now? Okay, all right.
I know the answer to this. So why isn't the current director part of the panel? Gordon Griggs was the last Camp Michigamme director. With the camp being closed, he has that title, but really no job with that right now. So there's nothing for him to be doing since the camp right now is closed. He is a member of the district leadership team. And again, just a reminder, and I don't know if we said this earlier, but maybe I'll say this now. So this fall, we had the financial report from Michigamme, and it was clear that the camp needed to close. So the Board of Trustees of the camp voted to affirm that decision and dissolve. The district leadership team for Northern Skies, who is responsible for this camp now, voted to suspend operations. And then Gordon is a member of the Northern Skies district leadership team. So the district leadership team has asked the task force, there's, how many of us are there? 6, 7. There's some of us, 8. There's the 4 of us you see here. I'm not going to try to list names because I will forget. The goal of that task force is to do these listening sessions, gather that information, and then make a report, maybe even a recommendation, but not necessarily, back to the district leadership team. The district leadership team then will decide what we're going to do, and we've set a goal of making that decision in March. Gordon is on that leadership team. So he is absolutely a voting member, absolutely has something to say about it, and so I wanted to make sure we know that he is included in this.
Most of us sitting here have no decision-making ability. We're just here to help to listen to a couple of these faithful people have really done their jobs to serve Michigamme very well, and that's why they bring some expertise and experience. But the task force is just here literally to listen and to possibly to make a recommendation to the district leadership team.
I know I've already spoken, so I'm not trying to dominate the time here, but I just want to speak to something that a comment that someone had made online in the chat. where it says keep core youth camp weeks, but add paid rentals, church retreats, family reunions, scout units, nonprofit small conferences, and shoulder seasons and weekends, and then also partnering with other local churches outside of the Methodist tent. And I think that's honestly, I think a great idea and kind of where things were headed with the board. And unfortunately, it was decided that we are at this point where we have to shut down before implementing that. I would also maybe take that a step further, and if we're really going to try and save money, maybe not even the core camp weeks, if you whatever you decide, junior high, senior high, elementary, combine them. Do 1 week, do 2 weeks at tops. Get volunteers back. Reach out to some of those people who, for years, were running those camps with pretty good attendance, and I was at a lot of them, so I saw on the ground how that went. But then really push and reach out to local churches, especially, start with the ones in our district, in our region, that have large congregations, that are kind of focused on doing things like that. I think of one in Ishpeming in particular, not to speak for anybody, but I know Wesley has a congregation that is open to things like that. So test those ideas out, but and this is where, like, I'm showing my true colors, but keep an option, keep something available for the kids, for the youth, and I know volunteers. I've been one. There's people out there who will do this, but honestly, they need to be asked, and we have to look at, okay, can we get volunteers for a week or 2 weeks? Probably not 3 or 4. I think where we're at, that's just not realistic anymore. But there are a lot of kids who attended last year and now are hurting because this is not going to be available for them, and I think we're doing a great disservice to them by not having this.
I know there's a lot of hopes and dreams, but a lot of this is financial. Where does the money tree come from, right? Who's giving to the money tree? How are we going to be sustainable? How could it be supportive, right? We look at shrinking local church budgets. We look at shrinking local church numbers. We look at shrinking youth and young adults, right? There's only so much money, and we've obviously used our reserves. Anybody want to make a big endowment? We'll take $1 million+.
Don't let the people online intimidate the people in the room. If you have a question, write it down. I'm taking notes as we're up here. But this one has come up now several times, and thank you, Jill. I know you're listening. Jill Lindenberg over in Bel Air. There are 80 acres of property. Quick question, in this room, how many people by a show of hands have been out to Michigamme in the last 2 years? Okay, good, so you're familiar a little bit with it. Secondly, I forgot to say this at the beginning, Alan Larson's book is out on the tables. We have lots of those copies. Please take it home with you, read it, share it with somebody. It gives you a much greater understanding of what's been going on over the years at the camp, and some really cool stories. It is amazing. But there are 80 acres, of which approximately, I'd say, a third of that probably is developed with trails and buildings and walking down to the waterfront. And those of you who've been there know this. The property to the west, that's more hilly, and there was some wood harvested off of that. I believe it was 2014, if I remember Alan's book right, that gave a little bit of a nudge in the funds to the camp, is totally and completely undeveloped. And so the question is, are we considering selling it? Could we use some of that money then to bring the camp into some other state where it could be used? Yes and no. There's a railroad line that runs right through it. And on Orange Road, which I've actually personally been over and talked to the people who live on Orange Road right there on the west side of camp, that is a single access road for their houses. So in theory, could you sell that land? Yes. Is there any way to get to it? No. There is no road, there's no access. You can't just parcel it off and put a for sale sign up there. So that is something absolutely the task force is considering. it's not as easy as just finding a realtor and say, well, just, parcel this off and let's do it, because there's a reason why it was never developed and never sold in the first place. There's basically no access to it. And so that would be something that unfortunately none of us here can answer. How could we actually do that? But we are recognizing that that is an asset that could possibly help us then to figure out, and how could we reuse this property? What could we do with it? Because again, there was a financial decision that brought us to this point where we could no longer sustain the ministries that we were doing there. So thank you. And again, I apologize to those online. I am reading every single comment. It's just hard to keep up with everything that we're doing here. So yeah, let me pass it back over.
I kind of have a question for you guys. As I was looking at the camper numbers, one of the things that I recognize is the adult camps were very well attended. I know just from seeing like the quilting camp and stuff like that, that those camps were filled up relatively quickly. Even though the numbers were not big, they were consistent. And what are your feelings about utilizing the camp for adult camps? What are your thoughts about the adult campers? I don't want to ignore the kids, but I do want to recognize that we did have a core group of people that came to do adult camping. And I'd like to get your thoughts about challenges, perhaps, if you were ever out there as an adult camper, what challenges you faced that we would need to address to get adult camping going. I'd like to hear from you a little bit about that, if you're willing.
Could we turn this to family camp? Maybe. Okay.
My name's Jessie Trudgeon. I personally have no stake in camp. I never went there. I went to a place called Somerset downstate. But thinking about that happening there is a little upsetting to me, and my in-laws are greatly invested in Camp Michigamme. My mother-in-law runs quilt camp for the most part. I actually had a couple patients of mine that I told about quilt camp this last summer, and they were very interested, but they were already scheduled to go elsewhere. I think they would be interested in coming this next year if I'd have let them know sooner. My current thought is, if we do have people that have children that may come from other denominations, could we do a preliminary registration just to see how much interest there is? Because that might give you a better idea of what we could do in 2027.
It's okay. I just want to say that I think. Oh, okay. Well, at my age too, I haven't been able to hear people talking very well using the mic. Yes. This one? That help? Okay. I was a dean at Michigamme for about 13 years of elementary one camp, which was our biggest camp every year. We filled all the cabins eventually every year, and had to turn either some boys away or some girls away because one can't put boys and girls in the same cabin. But it took a tremendous amount of work on my part as a pastor of the United Methodist Church in the Upper Peninsula to staff a camp. I don't think you realize it takes a counselor, 2 counselors for every 10 kids. Because you put 10 kids in a group, 5 boys, 5 girls, and you need 1 man counselor and 1 woman counselor. I ended up resorting often because I had full camps to getting parents to come with the agreement with the parents and their kids that they would not have any kids in their group of their kids, and their kids would not have to see their parents at all hardly during the camp, because they would be in a different group. And we worked it out pretty well, but I needed about a minimum of about 22 counselors, let alone, and then plus a nurse. You need somebody for crafts. You need somebody for the beach. These are all licensed positions that are mandatory. You need an assistant dean plus the dean, and I'm sure I'm missing some others yet. But it takes a tremendous amount of work just for one camp. Each camp. The next camp is entirely different, whole different staff. Usually, might get some counselors that come back a second year because they don't have a job during the summer, and they're not getting any pay as a counselor, but they do get free food, and they like the kids, and they're pretty good Methodists, and they'll come back and continue helping the program. But it's a tremendous amount of work, and it seems to me this talk should have been going on about, well, I guess we didn't know till COVID really, that we were really starting to have problems. And I just don't know if there's any chance at this point of really turning anything around. It's a matter of how best to save what we can and do what we can. It's a big piece of territory, and there's an old mine pit even on our property. Well, anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
So as an adult, the question was, what were the challenges that you might have seen or have occurred being an adult out at Michigamme? I'm pretty sure that was Vicky's question.
As an adult, I can say that one of the challenges is, granted, I mean, not a super old adult yet, but although one of my students did call me middle-aged, as an adult, childcare. What if I'm going out there for a week? What am I going to do with my kids? And luckily, when I have been out there, it's been in a capacity where I've been able to be with my wife and at the time just my daughter, but now we have a son too. So what would that look like in terms of offering some sort of, like we mentioned, family camp or like a whole family unit? And then I also know from some of my friends and people I've talked with who've been to camp who are older, mobility is an issue. I know that's part of it too. Grace Hall, where we do the meals, getting up and down that hill is not always easy. And even as a young adult, it's not always easy. So the terrain can be difficult. Having the Agape Wigwam there, I think, does open us up to some more creative possibilities for where we eat our meals, maybe moving things there. But I know mobility and childcare would be a big concern for a lot of adults. So what can we do to make that easier?
This is my personal question. Did Alan tell me the Emmaus group that was meeting there folded? Yes, okay. You can stay there, it's fine.
There have been, 20 to 30 wonderful ideas, so I don't want to reiterate all that's been said other than to say I think they're fantastic and absolutely worth exploring. One thing that I haven't heard mentioned yet, in addition to attending Camp Michigamme, my oldest daughter has attended Camp Lottie in the Keweenaw for many, many years with friends. And they do have a family camp whereby families will often bring campers and actually camp on the property. The kids aged 9 and up are eligible to stay in, they call them dorms or cabins, but the entire family attends, so that might be one additional option if there is space at Camp Michigamme, or if you would permit people bringing campers and whatnot to some of the open land, that entire families could come.
Sharon Rice, we camped we were a part of Michigamme starting when they built the east bathhouse. We worked with our family, went up and donated time, and only my son was eligible to be a camper at elementary camp. And we had a daughter that was younger, and they made the allowance for me to be at camp volunteering, and my daughter and I stayed at night in the trailers that used to be out by the road. And that's where we spent many years there camping, and sometimes I did waterfront because I was fully certified. I did crafts when our craft person wasn't available. I even was a dean of camp a few times when the deans had to be out of camp. But I was not able to come and volunteer because I had no source, no family in the area to leave my daughter at home. So allowing volunteers to have other family members allowed me to be able to come to camp, and you know, at the time there were other little kids. You know, the Larson girls were young, Chris had young kids, and most of the time my daughter would either tag along with me or hang out in the craft cabin with the craft person, and extra children did not seem to be a problem to the whole mix. But we did not was not assigned to a cabin for sleeping at night. You know, I didn't have 10 kids. And when we had a group of kids that needed extra help hiking during the day, I would fill in wherever was needed. So we had kind of floating volunteers, so to speak.
I'm Deanna Dunn. I'm a yearly attendee of quilt camp. I've done scrapbook camp in the past and others. So I guess I'll address Vicky's question about adults being at camp. And for me personally, and I know many of the other ladies, cleanliness is an issue. And after that would be maintenance. So if you know, and that was already addressed. We didn't have a maintenance person. We don't have a person who's responsible for, you know, they might clean their spot. They clean their cabins every week, the kids, I believe. But to have a group come in and have to clean their space first, whether it's for a rental or, you know, another group coming in, somebody needs to be responsible for that. And so that I guess came to my mind as, I think, the biggest issue.
Eric, do you have one?
I'm so bad at monitoring this feed. Gordon is online right now. He is at Camp Michigamme if you're in the feed. So someone asked, why isn't he here? Thank you, Gordon. He's actually getting on and answering some of these questions as I'm trying to address them as well. So, but yeah, the licensing and the staffing and having someone there all the time, even if it was open to rent to other entities, you know, that is the issue. And again, even if we advertised it to other schools and other places, hey, we've got this facility, would you like to use it? There are certain issues that work great for us. There's a wide open field the size of a football field. I was in marching band. I could see a marching band going there to practice. There's some issues that work against us. The capacity of the camp, the state of the dining hall, you know, how we would winterize and reopen those things, the bathroom. So even like having that vision of being able to let other people use it is good. It still asks the question of who maintains it, who goes through and makes sure that the facilities itself are passing inspection, and all those things so that we can let other people do it. And again, I'm not saying we have the answers. Those are something I'm writing down and asking the task force to try to look into and find that information. So thank you. Thank you for offering those ideas.
Thanks, Gordon. We appreciate you and what you've done and how you've served and how you keep serving.
That came up was like, well, what about when the wigwam was built? Some person asked, was that built to be open year round? Yes and no. It has heat, it has air conditioning in it. It has, you know, bathrooms downstairs. There's no staircase between up and downstairs. But looking at the bigger picture, to do that, again, who's there monitoring that space in the winter? Who's plowing the road to get up there? I do not want to drive my car. My Prius would not make it in there, you know, in the middle of the winter. If you read Alan Larson's book, there's a great chapter on when they did have winter camping available. There were some what we call modular houses that were on that field for a while. Those weren't built to be maintained throughout the tough Michigamme winters. So those eventually were torn down and taken away. But some of those ideas were attempted at some point, and I'm glad that they were, because that informs us now about some of the work that we're doing now. Yeah. This one's been on my heart a lot, and this is where I really want people to think. Take a second before you answer. What if we sold the entire property? What if we sold all 80 acres? I mean, obviously that is an option. That's not saying we've decided to do that, clearly not. But what if? And the question would be, how would we best manage that investment as a district, and what could we hope to use it for? Because I was really hoping to hear somebody ask that question and have ideas today. Well, what if? What if we were given a gift as a district? What would be some of the hopes and dreams we would hope to use with that gift, knowing that it comes from a place that was a summer camping ministry?
So my question would be regarding selling. Do we have the legal right to sell? When that land was gifted to the district for that purpose, what contingencies were put on it?
Thank you for that question. This has come up often, so let's state it hopefully very clearly and pick up Alan Larson's book. This is your homework tonight. Read Alan Larson's book, okay? The district superintendent in 1922 bought on behalf of the, what was at that time called the Marquette District, 80 acres of lakefront property on Camp Michigamme. There were 2 railroad lines running through it. There was a county highway there. It was purchased and paid for by the district that we are now members of. In a weird way, each one of you is a partial owner of Camp Michigamme. There was never a family that owned it and donated it. It was purchased literally from one real estate transaction to another real estate transaction. We have that paperwork, we have that title, we have it's everything there. And this has come up several times, so we want to make sure we're very clear. This land was never donated. It was never, oh, here's a gift with strings attached. It was, we want a space where we could have a week-long revival. Everybody was coming by train. It was crazy. And the Marquette District, which is now our Northern Skies District legally, owns that camp. So we are free to do with it as we will. That is the task of all of us, and I mean we in the broadest sense possible. If you are a member of a church in the Northern Skies District, you are a partner in this decision. So, but let me continue with this idea. What if, right?
Anybody want a book that didn't grab a book? I brought some in. Need a book? We can do both at the same time.
Alan Nelson, member of Marquette Hope. I am a former board member of Camp Michigamme. My mother was one of the first campers at Camp Michigamme in 1922. They stayed in tents. I was at camp in the late 50s, early 60s. To sell the camp would hurt. It would hurt me very badly. By the same token, we had 74 people in 2025, 74 kids. When I went in the early 60s, we had more than that. at senior camp. I don't know how your churches are doing, but we haven't got enough kids coming on Sunday to have a Sunday school. God knows we're not going to get any of them to camp. I don't know if we've got 74 people across the entire UP, can we realistically say we have to keep camp? I don't know. I will weep when and if we have to sell it. But I'll weep. Because if we can't keep it, let's get it to somebody who can. If that sounds negative, I guess it is. Reality is often negative, I'm afraid.
Thank you.
I think to give an indirect answer to the current question, you could explore the very, very best ideas possible of what to do with the money if it's sold, and still end up with something, the very best of those would have less value than what you currently own.
To add to that, you mentioned if we sell and we have the gift of that money, we already have a gift. It's not money, and I understand that keeping camp involves costs. I am aware of that. Like I said, I was on the board, so I've seen the financials. I get that, but we have a gift that is more valuable and of more value to more people than money ever will be. Maybe we sell some of the property. Maybe we put that in an investment. Maybe we keep that as a reserve budget. I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but to get rid of it would be probably the worst thing that we could do, in my opinion. I also would say, yeah, we're never going to get, is operating with just 74 youth, is that sustainable? No, but we can't look at this as if we're operating on that trajectory anymore, where we are predominantly a youth-centered camp. Back in the 20s and the 30s, it wasn't a youth-centered camp. It partnered with congregations. It was a retreat. It was a revival. It was tent meetings. That's what it was. And maybe we don't go back to that exact model, but maybe we be faithful to the mission that camp has been for at least half of its lifetime, if not more, where serving the youth of our district and of our area, even if it is only 74 kids, those 74 kids are important. And I know many who need that space and benefit from that, especially because with the numbers of churches declining in general, the number of youth in churches declining in general, to offer a space that is intentionally for them is going to be of more value than the money ever will be. So yes, we can open it up. We can partner with other congregations, other denominations that maybe don't have a camp. There's plenty of churches in the area that don't have a space like we have. If we are to sell the whole camp, who's going to do anything with it that's remotely close to what we're doing with it? And if there are people who want to do with it what we are doing with it, then we can reach out to them. We can reach out to other churches in the Marquette area, in the Escanaba Gladstone, all these areas, and work with them while still opening it up to new ideas for how to bring in revenue through rentals and other options like that.
I'll just add, as long as we're going back in history a little bit, I remember in my early days at Michigamme with regular youth program that we had some people who still had cabins on the property, and it seemed to me that different churches own different pieces of property, and I may be wrong, and I wish somehow we were talking more to the trustees of the camp. I'm often wondering about the deeds. Are the deeds, were they all purchased by little churches? That's why we have Ishmael cabins, the Ghani cabins, and so on, because I think those people had those cabins in the early days um, and then they developed into the camp. But maybe there's a way of going back to something of that system again, depending on how the deeds are, or what can be done, where people can come up with their families and still be a group of different families. Just like you'd be at about what's the park? Dan Raper State Park, where people come up and just kind of camp together as groups. Al would like to say something too.
The camp is owned by the district. The cabins were adopted by various churches or various church groups. None of them are owned by. We had a couple of churches when I was on the board who were not able or not willing to keep them up. So we gave them to somebody else. We said, okay, this cabin will become Nagani cabin. And Nagani would take care of it. So the care of the cabins was left to the churches, but the ownership, no. It's strictly district.
For example, I serve in Escanaba, and I was like, oh, there's an Escanaba cabin. I said, which one of my churches actually takes care of this? And they're like, well, we don't know, right? Because there's two churches in Escanaba, so it's the who falls under owner of, not ownership, but who helps take care of that.
Hi, I'm Roxanne Gardner, and I'm one of the neighbors to the west of Camp Michigamme. And I attended Camp Michigamme in the early 70s. And before that, as a member of the Methodist Church at that time, we'd go and help Bill Hampton with cleaning and yard work and such. And I think at that time, it was all a lot of volunteer. And I think that's what you're gonna need today to keep that up. And alumni such as I that attended, I know I'd be happy to go in and help out. And I think maybe we should look at getting some committees together. And I know that fundraising is able to be done by volunteers. We're from Michigamme. We raised over $180,000 in just a short time for our museum to get a steamer back. And I think if maybe we considered getting some committees together for different reasons, to maybe set up groups to clean, for fundraising, to get people more enticed to come to camp, and get a bunch of little groups together, I think a lot could be done.
Here's my out loud question, and this might be toward Brady because I can't remember. If we went as we were and paused our operations, how much does it cost us to just keep the property as is right now per year?
Well, I'm going to start this answer, and then I'm going to give Brady the mic. We have to pay the insurance. We have to pay upkeep, any maintenance. We have to use it for a religious purpose every calendar year, at least once. What else, Brady?
So if nothing happened at camp, and there was the one event, the one religious event per year, I think right now we're paying, with nothing going on at camp, we're paying about $500 in base utility costs. So without anything happening at camp, camp is shut down, winterized, gates are locked, the roads aren't plowed. We're spending about $500 a month on base electricity costs. So that's $6,000 per year. Insurance we've looked into, but right now it's running us over $1,000 per month. So that's another, add 12,000. If we had one religious event out there, I don't know the licensing requirements behind that, but there would probably be some licensing camp membership that we have to, the Campers Association membership that we have to maintain. I think that one's $1,000 per year. So ballpark, if we had nothing going on, just off the, without looking too deep into the numbers, probably around 20 to 25,000. If we just were trying to maintain the camp as is, nothing going on besides the one event per year. Correct. Yeah.
This has been discussed, but I think the part of this that's hard to answer is we use this word "we" a lot, right? This "what if we did this? What if we did that? What if we have one event? What if we do that?" We currently we're not paying any staff. We don't have any board. So to talk about, if we have one event, who's the we? Is the district the we? In this case, I would imagine the district is having one event. So again, just these costs, Gordon's salary, Gordon will be paid through the end of June. That was a commitment that we wanted to make the district leadership team wanted to make to Gordon to pay him through the end of the appointment year. So getting at your question, Aaron, it sort of depends on what would it be used for, who would be organizing that, of the people organizing that, how many are volunteers, how many are paid by whom, and all of that. Yeah, so it ends up being kind of a complex question. Yeah, for sure.
And I just saw a comment or question from Jill. You don't have to be accredited. I don't know the requirements behind that, but one thing that I guess I forgot to mention was that there is a Michigamme Lake Shore Owners Association that we pay annual membership dues to, and I believe that one is over $1,000 per year. That bill comes in the spring, if I remember right.
Okay.
Yeah, from my recollection, ours is over $1,000.
Others said it was per member. Ours is. We are not sure.
When we talk about we and who makes these decisions, it is a valid question, and that's I think why having a board was useful, and obviously any sort of political body board, especially within churches, like there's always issues with that, but I feel I disagree with I don't know if disagree is the right word, but the timeline of this, where maybe having these listening sessions prior to making this decision or prior to dissolving the board would have been beneficial, because then we could have said, okay, well, there is a we who can actually do something like this. I'm not here just to complain, maybe just a little bit to complain, but not here just to complain. But yeah, there are volunteers out there who still have a love for and a passion for camp and a connection for camp. They need to be asked. And in 2019, the decision was made very explicitly to not rely on volunteers anymore. This isn't something that just happened overnight. a plan was created, the board voted to do this, and we can look at the enrollment numbers. From 2020 was the post-COVID year, I understand, but since then they've gone down. And I know, I'm not saying that's the only factor. There's always a multitude of reasons why anything happens, but the volunteers are still there, and they can step up. And I know many of them personally who, and I know this is anecdotal evidence, but they will step up if necessary. And again, not saying we continue the trajectory we've been on, but people are there that can make this happen. And I would really, really encourage the decision makers to talk to the director, the people who run Presbytery Point, because like I said, they've gone through something very similar to this, and they got through it, and they're still getting through it. They do pay someone to keep the roads plowed year round. They do have, I believe, only 2 buildings that are maintained and open year round, but those options are available, and we can do something similar if we're willing to be creative and to shift gears and mend some bridges and reach out to people.
I don't want to get into any of the details, but I was on the board when the discussion of paying counselors was being considered. We didn't do anything at that time. However, internal problems were the major factor in whether or not we should go from volunteers to salary. And at that time, volunteers were becoming a problem. I'll let it go at that.
I've never participated in setting up a camp, needing volunteers for counselors or any of that. However, my son and I have gone out every year for many years for the first weekend of the year for cleanup. Last year was the most people I've ever seen. I think we maybe actually hit double digits. Prior to that, if we had a dozen people to get camp ready, that was a lot. So that means cleaning all the cabins, cutting up those fallen trees, doing all that maintenance that winter brought us. And so that's just my experience with the number of volunteers that have come for that one event to start the camping season.
So a couple things I'd like to address, and again, we only know our own experience. We can't know what other people go through. We can't know other people's experiences personally. Were there problems with volunteers? Sure. Have there been problems since then with paid staff? Yes, there's been problems with board members. There's been problems with paid directors who went through a rigorous hiring process and background checks. There's issues with everybody, and there's the potential to be issues with every kind of position in any kind of organization. So to blame it all on volunteers, I think is, I really hope an unintentional mischaracterization. But there are many problems, and Al, I know you and I know personally some of what those are, and we can speak to those at another time. But I also want to address the fact that there may be a lack of volunteers presently and within recent years, but again, that was done intentionally. Prior to 2019, when the decision was made to go away from the volunteer model, was a large group of us. Right now I'm wearing my Camp Michigamme, but I'm sure to have another one that says Meredith Cabin Crew. If you've ever been out there, Meredith Cabin, in my not so humble opinion, is the best cabin out there, because when you look at it, it's got a deck whose square footage is almost probably about the same as the square footage of the cabin itself. But there was a group independent of Michigamme Day, independent of those cleanup days, that went out there and put in the time to maintain a cabin that was in a state of disrepair that no one was responsible for, and in addition to that, to help open up the camp and do a lot of that spring cleaning. We went out in May for several years in a row. So these things were happening. And I say were and not are, because even though there are some volunteers who still go there, and I absolutely applaud them for their faithful service, there had been people doing these things. And the decision was made to not do that anymore. So when we look at that and say, well, where are the volunteers? They are there. They were there, and they are still there, and can be there again. But there's bridges that need mending, and honestly, people just need to be asked, and people need to be given an honest assessment of what's going on, which is what we're doing now. But I feel like we're months, if not years. Now, it's not that all hope is gone, but this process should have been happening a while ago.
And we're not here to point fingers or to cast blame on anything that has happened in the past, but this is our current reality.
I don't want to leave anybody with the impression that I'm blaming anybody. It was a reality of the situation, and we were trying, like we're doing right now, trying to find a solution. And one of the solutions that obviously was adopted was to go away from the volunteer to a salaried. Reality of the situation, that's all. No blame.
And camping has changed over the years from volunteer to paid staff, and that's not just here in the Northern Skies District, that's all across the country as well.
So, and I would also like to ask another question, because I'm impressed on how many people are here today. And we don't even have a full house, but we got a ton of people online. And one of the questions that I've always hit was, what is the best way to pass along communications? I keep hearing that word, communicating. What's the best way? Is it via mail? Is it via email? Is it online? Is it text blasts? I'd like to hear your thoughts about the best ways to get a hold of you or whomever, so that when decisions, as we move forward, we can get as many people as possible aware of what's happening, so that somebody can't turn around and say, well, I never heard that. And I'm not gonna blame anybody, but I'm gonna be honest with you. If anybody says, just send it to my church office, I'm gonna be honest with you, you may not hear it, okay? So, and as a clergy person, I can say that. You may not hear it if you say, well, just send it to the church. So I'm just wanting to hear from you. What are the ways that you prefer to get communications so that we can keep communication open about everything?
Earlier, I was saying about Van Riper State Park, but the more I think about it, maybe the way to go is to, since everybody's got campers now and this camping, I sold mine, but to have a week, I suppose then we'd have a whole lot of licensing to go about to open a camp where people could motorhome, or a camping park of Methodists, where then the Methodists could do their own cooking and so on, each in their own unit. And yet the kids could be together and people could be together, and you run a camp. But again, what level would have to be to make a go of it, or to keep it open, or to make it go well? I don't know. I'm probably beyond that age almost now. Anyway, that's my only other 2 cents worth of something positive there. You know, camping is in. Dan Riper's full. My son works at Dan Riper. And he's just, they don't know what to do. People start coming before they're open, and want to come after they're closed, and it's full all the time. So maybe we could do that with Methodist Camp.
Has Michigamme ever explored RV sites and installing RV sites? Yes. Okay. Then we'll go back to the communication question.
It was something that we were looking at before we got to the point where we ran out of money and had to suspend operations for 2026, because the camp does have, I believe it's, is it 10 available sites? Six. So we do have 6 available sites that have water and electric that could be set up. But where we hit the issue, and I'm saying this is a good idea because we explored it, but in order to maintain being a camp, you have to have a program attached to it of some sort, be it a flyer, be it a this. You still need somebody there to maintain, because it's not just the camping, it is the learning Christ part. And that's the part that it's like, if I open it up to if I open up my backyard to camping, and I say, and I want it specifically for Christ-centered camping, how can I do that? How can I offer programming to do that? Because one of the challenges that we met with that, just being up front, was, well, if we don't have a waterfront person, I can't open up camping and say, and you've got waterfront available. I have to have a waterfront person that's licensed and ready to do that. So we did explore that, and we looked at getting fire pits, and we were pretty excited about the idea. We thought it had a lot of potential and wouldn't, it was already there, but I think it's worth still exploring. But that is one of the questions that we hit, is how do we keep it a Christ-centered camp? And that is, something that is a challenge, but I still think it's worth exploring. I like the idea, always have.
Can we get the British TikTokers to come and do a fundraiser for us? Anyways, we needed some laughter. All right, communications. How can we communicate? How do you like to be communicated to? Email, text, Facebook, snail mail?
Shout out to the person commenting from Presbytery Point, because I don't think we've met, but thank you. You've been very helpful in the chat. They were talking about when they do things from camp. It's everything. Online, visit the churches, snail mail, send out to the camp representatives, meet everybody at their age level, and to increase the visibility of the camp in their churches. So it's everything. It's not just one size fits all. And speaking as a pastor who tries to, I'll just do my weekly email. I'm sure everybody will read it. Like, I get that. You have to, it is a requirement nowadays that publicity has to be in multiple forms to multiple people. And I honestly, some people are asking, well, have you contacted alumni? Have you contacted former campers? Have you contacted former counselors? I don't know, because I've never worked for the camp. But I believe in some cases when the camp board of trustees was doing communications, they were, because I remember receiving it in my church office at Houghton, and I dutifully put it up there. And I guess shout out to my own congregation right now, because we had a huge spaghetti dinner. We raised a couple of $1,000s, and we sent it to camp, and we felt great about it. And neat to see those people unified around that purpose. Someone was asking about volunteers and what are they doing. Honestly, I asked my church, and I said, guys, this is the state of the camp right now. Is there anybody that wants to come out and help me? And 4 guys came with me. We spent all day at camp, something like 8 hours. And all we were doing was locking cabin doors and like picking up a little bit of trash here and there. It took us all day just for that. I was like, this will take us a couple hours to knock out, right? No, it took a lot longer than that. But I was so grateful, and you could see the look of hope in their eyes, in the sense that, hey, I'm doing something, and I can see that I've accomplished something useful for the camp. And at the same time, the overwhelming feeling when you walk through the facility, how many hundreds of hours, people hours, would it actually take to get this camp to a state where it could be used? So it's a little bit of both. There is help, and I'm so glad. I don't know your name, sir, but with the passion that you're sharing with, thank you. because a lot of people have been helping the camp, and we have been trying our best to keep it open, and I know that includes many people in this room, many people that are online. I never worked for the camp, but maybe we didn't say thank you enough, so I'm saying thank you to you all right now, and thank you for being here and helping us to not only process these new ideas that we want to give to the leadership team, but also a little bit of grief that probably needed to be done many years ago. But we're people that are going on to perfection, right? So we're trying to figure this out today. So I want to say thank you on behalf of everyone who has ever been at Camp Michigamme and has ever influenced a child or an adult that's been there to make a decision for Christ. That is absolutely what we're about. We're just trying to figure out, God, how do you want us to go, forward in the future here?
And we believe that the Spirit is at work and is moving, but listening for God's presence, both here and the next couple of listening sessions, just helps give some guidance of the way forward. It is currently 2:37, so we technically have 23 minutes. Is there anything else on your hearts this afternoon that you would like the task force to address? They can tell me no to this question. No. Okay, so if there's anything else on your hearts that you'd like the task force to address.
It's nothing new, so it's anything new that's on my heart, but in order, if nothing else, to feel good about my own conscience, please, and I know you will, but please look at the comments that people have been saying online. I've been following along on my phone, and just a variety of creative ideas, new ideas, things that can be done. We know we can't continue on the trajectory that we've been on, but I think the goal, again, my personal opinion, but the goal needs to be, what can we do to keep camp a place where people can go and experience Christ and have those connections, those lifelong connections made. My wife is not with us. That's a lifelong connection. We would not be here together if it was not for Camp Michigamme. Our kids would not be here if it was not for Camp Michigamme. And just look to the people who have been involved, who maybe aren't. Think creatively. And I've said this before, and I'll say this again, but please talk to Presbytery Point. I know the director and we've been talking back and forth. They've been commenting. They have some great ideas, and they had to get creative. They've been at the point where we are at now. So please don't give up on this. I understand money is a factor. I'm fully aware of that, but there is so much more at stake here than just the financial reality.
Y'all have been really quiet. Do you have any things to say? No? It's like church. I'm going to pick you out. What? That's right. Anything else on your heart this afternoon about Camp Michigamme? Okay, one more thing, and I'm holding you to it.
I really am disappointed in how many people came today. It kind of shows you the interest in Michigamme. I know, but it's a shame more haven't been here, and I don't know if there's just not any excitement about it anymore, or more people who've all been to Michigamme would come. I was disappointed. I'm glad those of you who are here are here. I'm glad I came, but it just doesn't seem like. I thought this meeting might rouse up some interest and get, enthusiasm and so on going, but we got a little bit, I think. It's positive, but just hoping for a lot.
We also have 2 more listening sessions next week in Crystal Falls, and then a couple weeks in Gladstone. Christy's ready to talk.
I just wanted to clarify for everyone that only today's listening session is online. So if you have more that you go home and think about, or if you are at home and you think about and you have more ideas, questions, thoughts, and you're not able to get in person to Crystal Falls or to Gladstone, please send your thoughts and ideas to me. I'm probably the easiest person, or to the task force. We want to continue to funnel in all of the thoughts that we can, but just want to provide clarity that the other 2 listening sessions will not have this hybrid online component. Oh, well. If you want to email me, my email is khints@michiganumc.org.
And Eric is another great person if you don't want to email Christy. So Eric.
I just did khints@michiganumc.org, and mine again is eric.gumc@gmail. You can put the .com in there yourself. I didn't even get the @ right. My fingers are so cold. I'm terrible at typing right now. Bob, I want to answer your question real quick. 22 people are in this room right now. So those of you online, you can't see everybody. There's 22 people in this room. Online, we just jumped up to 47 people. We were at 40. I'm not sure what happened there. So, and that's 47 devices. So if mom and dad are watching their computer, that's actually 2 people. So we could almost have 100 people watching this right now. I don't know because I can't see their faces. I'm not Big Brother. But it's hard. That's the hard thing about hybrid, is to understand that there's actually twice as many people in this conversation right now than you actually see in this room. If everybody online were in this room, we wouldn't have enough chairs for them. So kind of imagine the person sitting next to you is actually at a computer somewhere. No, yeah, it was kind of cold this morning. Sorry, I just shouted into the microphone. What I was going to say is, though, this YouTube stream is recorded at Marquette Hope YouTube. Dominic, correct me if I'm wrong. You're not going to erase this or anything. It's just the video is going to be there from now until Jesus comes back. So save the link, same link, and nothing's going to change. What will change is if you're watching this now, and I'll speak to the people in the future. Thank you for joining us for the listening session. You won't be able to comment in the live chat feature. However, you can comment onto the video itself. And I'm just going to try to put myself out there and say I will go back and try to review those comments, at least for the next couple of weeks, if something else new is put on there. So I know that won't be the same as live streaming at Crystal Falls or at Gladstone. I'm pretty sure we cannot do it that way. But the comments in this video can still be active. So it's just like when you go on and you watch a Taylor Swift video, God forgive me, and you're like, oh, that was a cool video, and you type it in there, right? And that's there forever. That will be the case for this video. So anybody speaking, mostly the people who are watching this, not today, January 24th, but afterwards, right? We can still go back and read your comments. And I'm not sure, is the live feed saved? Can that be like, so I can like copy it and download it, because I want to be able to make a document of these comments. So I think so. Well, we'll cross our fingers that can be done. But I've taken a bunch of notes as well. Was there anything else I needed to say? I don't think so.
At this point, I want to tell you thank you for sharing your hearts, for sharing your hurts, your hopes, your dreams. But this process isn't over yet. But thank you for giving us 2 hours as we just try to faithfully discern God's will in the future and how all of this looks. We have no idea, absolutely none. But thank you for being here with us on such a cold, bitter day, or for joining us online. And please join us in the future too, as this is heavy work. And I invite you to join in prayer in just this work and over Camp Michigamme and all the beloved people that the lives that Jesus Christ has been touched in all the lives, because that is a thing to celebrate and a thing that we can give thanks. So Christy is going to close us in prayer, and then there's some refreshments afterwards. You can pick up a book or you can leave as you need to be.
All right, friends. Aaron has already said it, but I'm just going to say it again. Thank you so much for your time, for your thought today. Let's pray. God, we know that you hear us. You know our hearts, and that you receive all that we place before you. We come to you for discernment in this season of such thankfulness for all that Camp Michigamme has given to so many, for all of the nurturing, all of the calling forth of your children, your people, for ministry in so many ways, all of the lives shaped. And God, as we are thankful, we are also wondering, we are asking that you would continue with us as we have questions and discernment that feels really hard, God. So I would ask that you would hold us together through these days, through this time, that you would be with us. And God, for all of those at home or here in Marquette, send us out now with hearts open to hear your words as we continue this conversation about Camp Michigamme. In the name of your Son we pray. Amen. Shout out to Dominic. Thank you, Dominic, in the booth today.